like to start off by acknowledging the indigenous nations whose land we're on right now, and to simply say thank you for continuing to steward this land. Thank you for pushing us to remember that indigenous people are still here and still very much on the front lines of what it means to save not just this nation, but this world from disaster. It is important for us to understand that movements are not begun by any one person, but that this movement actually began in 1619 when black people were brought here in chains and at the bottom of boats. And certainly, we should be reminded that it is a combined effort of so many incredibly courageous and bold and fearless and powerful people that some, you may never even know their names, but you should know that they too are the co-creators of what it is that we're experiencing and participating in today. With that being said, our role has been to remind us of our humanity, to remind us that Black lives matter too, to remind us that we are still living in a time when that is a contested statement, and it should not be. Black Lives Matter, a movement that swept the nation in the wake of an uprising and police brutality in the black community. We see this controversy in television, politics, football, but what do these words actually mean? In her 2016 speech, Alessia Garza investigates the necessity and power on Why Black Lives Matter by Alessia Garza. When I went to high school, I was required to take a civics class where I learned about my responsibilities as a citizen of the United States. My civics class taught me about how our system of democracy works. It taught me where that system of democracy comes from. And it taught me that citizenship is a privilege earned only by active participation. And yet, what civics did not teach me and black people like me is that my citizenship is conditional. Now, this is the harsh reality for black people in America today, that we're expected to participate in democracy while receiving conditional citizenship in return. In 2005, black people, many of them poor, waved white t-shirts on tops of roofs in the Gulf Coast, waiting for relief that still today has never come. We were stuffed in stadiums, abandoned in jails, shot as we were attempting to cross bridges to find safety. We were called looters and rioters, while white families were called finders and survivors. This was also the year that Stan Tookie Williams, a product and ultimately a victim of the circumstances that created him, was executed in the prison where my mother was once a corrections officer. In 2009, Oscar Grant was shot in the BART station platform just 3 blocks from my home on New Year's Day. His last words to the world was, "You shot me. I have a daughter." Tatiana is now an 11-year-old girl living with the legacy of her father, who's now become an icon, was murdered when she was just 4 years old. In 2013, George Zimmerman was acquitted in the murder of Trayvon Martin. Also that year, 19-year-old Renisha McBride was shot when she went onto the porch of a man after she got into a car accident, just asking for help. She was shot in the eye through a locked security door. In 2014, Michael Brown was executed just steps from his mother's home in Ferguson, Missouri. And just 2 months later, 12-year-old Tamir Rice was shot and killed by policemen in Cleveland while playing alone in the park. We've been living in an era where everything and nothing is about race, where expectations of the events that I just described are often cast aside as a result of a few bad apples, or an unfortunate consequence to what happens to people who don't try hard enough to succeed. We emerge from an era where talking about race, racial inequity, systemic racism has been deemed racist in and of itself. In fact, in 1992, even Rodney King, whose brutal beatings by Los Angeles police officers was videotaped and broadcasted around the world. Rodney King responded to the rage by saying, "Can we all just get along?" As if it was as simple as people being nicer to each other. You see, a cauldron has been bubbling under the surface for a very, very long time, occasionally expressing itself in instances of uprising. Were it not for the organizing and disruptive direct action in Oakland, Oscar Grant's killer would not have been charged for his crime, nor would he have been convicted. But I believe that he was one of the first officers in the history of California to ever have been held accountable for a crime. We must acknowledge that what we are experiencing is a powerful backlash to powerful movements in the making. It means that we should get comfortable, not in sameness, but in difference. It means that we should get comfortable knowing that while we are all not the same, but we are all impacted by the dangerous system like white supremacy. It's not Donald Trump we need to be afraid of. It's the system and the society that created him. Let us build a movement that unites millions of us, brilliant and wise in our differences, and convicted in the belief that we're exactly what we need to free ourselves.